at the time.
Yeah.
He then recommended that he gets an MRI, and he was referred to a neurologist. And that is when we got the diagnosis.
Right.
That it was actually Alzheimer's.
Wow. We're so sorry to hear about that. But even as a caregiver, what does that actually mean? It's not just checking in once a day or calling to see how dad is. When you're a caregiver, does that mean your life has stopped? You are 100% dedicated to taking care of your dad?
Well, I'm actually an actor.
Yeah.
That's my job. But I have become a caregiver because of dad's condition. And the thing is, just one of the most difficult things to deal with is you're mourning someone who's still alive. You know, because it's not just memory loss that comes. The brain is dying. So all functions will cease at some point.
Wow.
Yeah? Movement will, whatever the brain function that controls movement will die out. Whatever controls eating will die out. Conversation, bowel control, all these things die out eventually. So your loved one is there, but they're basically dying as you watch them, because the brain is what is dying. And the brain is the only organ in the body that does not regenerate its cells. So it's really painful. Because I remember when the diagnosis came, I'd heard of Alzheimer's. It was something very abstract.
Right.
Because it's in the movies.
About it?
It's actually something in the movies. That was the first time I ever came across it, was on some TV series, and I was like, oh yeah, so this guy's just going to lose his memory. And you know, it's so abstract, and the only thing we seem to know about it is the memory loss.
Right.
And at the back of your mind, yes, you know the brain is dying, but what it entails
is a totally different monster altogether.
Yes, until you see it for yourself.
Right.
So it's really hard to deal with. It's initially very abstract. Like I thought, this is just a Mzungu's disece. You
shock on you.
No, like seriously.
Yeah,
we have old senile people. That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, Doc, if you can just explain, you know, some of the brain changes that someone with Alzheimer's is, you know, pretty much experiencing, because like she had said, he had to go for a scan. What typically happens to the brain, you know?
So I'd like you to imagine a circuit, an electricity circuit, right? It has many connections. And basically, if one part of it, for one reason or another, cannot have the electricity move, it means there will be no communication moving forward. So that is what happens to the little things called neurons. There are like many, many of them.
Right.
So if one of them stops functioning, it means anything after that will not function. So over time, they die. And eventually, the brain shrinks. Right? So that is now how we get to how the functions that the brain controls get affected over time. But remember, it's a progressive condition.
It just doesn't happen overnight.
Actually, you could find that when it is diagnosed, or when some of the symptoms begin to come in at 60, some of these processes began 30 years ago.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. You'll tell us a little bit more about that in terms of the onset of this particular disease. But let's go back to those examples so that a friend or a family member can be able to spot the signs. And yes, we've talked about memory loss as the key symptom of Alzheimer's, you know, earlier on. But what should I really be spotting out and say, okay, I'm a bit worried about mom or dad? Let me start off with you, Karimi.
The repetitive conversations. When you've had a conversation, you've concluded, but then your loved one brings it up all over again. And it's not because they're adding on to it, but it's because they've actually, to them, they've never had this conversation with you before.
Wow.
It's, for them, it's a first time that they're hearing it. Then there's insomnia. Is one of the key things, because you realize that as we grow older, actually like when you hit 40, sleep sorts of disappears. And the older we get, the worse it becomes. But there's something about patients with Alzheimer's and dementia, people living with it, they just don't sleep. which is not a very good thing because the brain detoxifies when you're asleep. Just forgetting little things that we take for granted. Like I told you about answering phone calls. You know, this M-Pesa thing. So my dad would get messages, maybe like from Safaricom or whatever, and he'd look and say, why are these people trying to steal my money?
What?
You know, such things.
Yeah.
You may not, so you explain to him, but it's not
clicking.
That there's something wrong. And then there's aggression. Someone who could have been previously a very calm person. But as they're trying to remember, they're struggling. And also when the loss of independence starts coming in, when they realize actually they cannot do something for themselves. Because according to the patient, everything is fine. Everything is fine. They are okay. It's the people around them now. As you're trying to...
You're being pushy, you're bothering them.
Yes, so there's aggression. That is another thing that you look out for. And then Alzheimer's has also been referred to as type 3 diabetes. So you need to look out for the signs and symptoms of diabetes, which is another thing that a neurologist would rule out when you take them for
a scan,
for the scans and for investigation.
All right. Remember, we want you to talk to us, and if you do have any questions or concerns, especially if you've noticed something about a loved one that you would like to throw, obviously, to Dr. Muthoni this morning, why don't you let us know? Karimi obviously does have the experience being a caregiver. You may also throw your questions or your concerns to her about how she and her family are managing this situation. But remember, we do have that question of the day for you, and we've been asking you about what are some of those misconceptions that you've had concerning Alzheimer's disease. Let's see if we do have any feedback so far. We've got, hello Shiko, I'm Rajab watching from Kajiado. You look amazingly beautiful today. Okay, thank you. He says, Shiko, for me, I have been hearing that Alzheimer's is a disease of the very old people, about 90 years and over. Okay, let's talk about that in just a second. Do we have someone else? Okay, so very interesting point that he's brought up, because how many of us think the way Rajab is thinking, Daktari? And from the little that we know, we hear that the onset is perhaps 60 and above. For some people, they think, those are problems I will face when I'm in my senior years. But what have studies shown about the onset for Alzheimer's?
Yes, it is a disease that actually majority of the people are 60 or probably 65 and above. However, we have early onset dementia, where we have people 45, 48 years old actually getting to experience and have dementia. Like you said, most of us think it's an older person's issue, or it is a normal part of aging. No, it is not a normal part of aging.
Number one, it's not a normal part.
Not. Okay. It is something that needs to be addressed. Recognized and managed. However, it is not curable. So it has to be managed. And it has the potential of actually breaking families. Assuming you're my sister, and I am living with our mom for this time. And then you come into the house, she's had her breakfast. You ask her, have you had breakfast? And she's like, no. So what's the next thing you will say?
You're not feeding mom.
Or I'm mistreating her, right? So what's the next thing you will do? Take her and think and you know? By the time you get to realize what has been happening, we already could not talk to each other. We don't see eye to eye.
And it's those small things.
Very small things.
And you know, one of the questions that we also did have today was to pose to our viewers that whether or not someone does have the patience to go through this as a caregiver. In your opinion, Karimi, because thinking about what it entails and even the cost around it, do you encourage people to actually seek professional help or take their parents, their mom or their dads to a home? Have you considered that as a family even?
Well, first I'll tell you why I was smiling, because you're talking about patience. One thing I'll say is Alzheimer's has taught me how to be patient. I'm not a patient person, because it would actually get to a point where I was trying to explain something to Dad, and he's not getting it, and I'm getting very irritable. And see my mom kicking me like, wait, behave yourself. You know, like, just manage yourself, manage yourself. So we need to be very patient. The question of taking our parents to homes, it's not an easy one. We are Africans.
Yeah.
We value our elderly. We've been raised, our parents raise us, and then we take care of them later in life.
Yeah.
But it actually gets to that point. I know certain families who have reached that point of they have to take their parents into home care because probably there's a widow or it's a widow or a widower or a divorce has happened and the parent does not want, you know, sometimes they still feel like maybe they're being a burden to others, or they just can't live around with, let me find a nice way to say this. They reject caregivers, and they need to be cared for. So you sit down and you make the decision that this person has to go into an old parent's home, into home care. I would really struggle with that.
Okay, just hold that thought because Joshua from Kirinyaga is with us on the line. Let's hear what he has to say or ask. Joshua, welcome back. Hello?
Yes, now Shiko.
Yeah.
Now I'm aware that everything in life tends towards some sort of negative energy. So I know when you grow old as human beings, there is reduced activity, our bodies will waste, our energy results will also go down, our general performance really goes down, and some organs even fail. So I want to ask Dr. Muthoni, at what point do you draw a line between Alzheimer disease and the general consequences of aging? And then I want to say this on a very light note. There are these people who are below the age of 60, young people, who attend OU money and they pretend that they cannot remember anything. Do they have Alzheimer's disease?
Okay, she will answer that in a moment. Thank you, Joshua. Okay, all right, so over to you, Dr. Muthoni, to answer the question that Joshua is asking is that, you know, how can we tell the difference? And you already said that this is not a normal progression.
Yes.
Yeah.
In as much as there will be changes with aging, but they're not as much as to cause somebody to get dependent. The older people out there, they still can do the arithmetics properly. They still can do their, for example, you go to the shop, you have 200 shillings, you bought bread, which is 50 shillings. So how much do you expect in change? Some of those things actually do not apply for somebody who has dementia. They cannot do simple arithmetics. Decision making is another interesting thing. So like you heard Karimi say, you've just had a conversation. We were supposed to sell a certain piece of land or something for whatever reason. And then they will again ask, what did you say? No, we never had such a conversation.
You're trying to still...
Exactly.
Yes. So
and then you will find that, for example, somebody with some property, they will actually hoard. They will hide the title deeds. They will hide the logbooks. You know, those kind of things. That is not... That should tell you something is happening.
Something is happening.
And it gets to a point where a parent does not remember their children. Right? And they will tell you, probably these are spouses. So the wife maybe is the one who's suffering from dementia and then says, I was never married. I do not have children. But they can give you very interesting stories about their childhood. And you will find them saying, I want to go back home. And probably where they call home is where they grew up. Probably the children have no idea where that was. And even if they do, that place has by now changed quite much.
Absolutely, obviously. And so let me just join this with my next question about someone who is watching thinking, is there a way I can prevent this from happening? Because yes, we've got all sorts of ages watching this particular show. But for those who are watching for the sake of our parents, for those who are even over 60 and watching this show, what does data tell us or science tell us about how to prevent, developing dementia?
Two things. One, 40% of dementia cases are preventable. There are risk factors that predispose us to dementia. So when we address these risk factors, it means it becomes easier to either prevent or delay the onset of dementia. So some of these things, majority of them are actually lifestyle issues. We need to be physically active. We need to consume a healthy diet. We need to manage or limit our consumption of alcohol. Or let me say, not misuse alcohol. For those smoking, they could smoke, and also we need to support people looking to stop smoking. We need to reduce air pollution or make sure that our environment is good enough such that the air pollution is reduced. People using hearing aids, we need to assist them and also take care of our ear health, right? We need to manage our diabetes well, our obesity, if we're obese, and our hypertension equally well. And again, we need to reduce, manage depression. It is a risk factor.
It is.
And one very important thing in the big basket is social connectedness. You know, this is how we connect these days, right?
Yes.
Social interaction is very important.
Okay, we'll talk a little bit about that, because I also want to find out whether Karimi, you know, that's working at home in terms of managing dad's condition. But we do have WhatsApps. Let's see what people are saying via WhatsApp on the same. And we've been asking whether you know about any misconceptions out there concerning dementia. Well, someone asks, hi people, how long does it take to notice the symptoms? Okay. All right, thank you so much for that. Hello, Shiko, can you get this Alzheimer's thing in your teenage life? Okay, should I answer that? But it's still a question. Hi, Shiko. Watching with my 80-year-old mother, she's so forgetful, is hearing humming noises in her ears a symptom? Okay. Wow, this is scary, because all we thought it comes with age. My granny suffered that I now understand, but too bad we lost her on the 1st of January. Thank you so much for that. And Pauline Isana, thanks Shiko for this show. I now understand what was happening. I can now study about it more. Thanks a million, Shiko and K24. That is Lois from Nakuru. And she goes on to say, I understand that about, you know, the caregiver's situation. Okay, hello Shiko, does memory loss that comes after childbirth also a sign of the disease? Okay, all right. There's no such thing as a silly question, so we will answer all. First, someone asking about you getting it in your teenage years.
It may not, it could be many other things.
Yeah.
There are many other things that could present as dementia, and once they're sorted, it settles.
Okay.
For example, if you have a vitamin B12 deficiency, it could present as that. If you have an alcohol problem, or if you have people who have had use of alcohol problem for a long time, they could have something that presents like dementia.
Right.
There are many things, even a stroke itself, in as much as a stroke also predisposes to another type of dementia called vascular dementia.
Right, okay.
So that could happen. However, remember, some of these things that will present at 60 began long time ago.
All right.
So assuming that probably somebody has dementia at 45, it means 30 years was probably 15.
Really?
They were teenage.
Yeah.
So maybe those things began happening then, but it may not present that. The same thing as memory loss that comes with childbirth or after childbirth. That could be something completely different. Most probably postpartum depression. This is depression after childbirth.
Right.
And remember, depression is a predisposition for dementia in later life.
Okay. Well, brought up a very interesting point that there are some conditions that really do mimic you know, dementia, and so you've got to be careful. I think the most you can do is really follow through with that testing and going out for that, getting that diagnosis done in order to know for sure, because if it is presenting as something else, we could all be saying that we've got, you know, dementia or Alzheimer's at, you know, at this point. But let's take a short commercial break. Keep your text messages coming, and even some of the observations that you have made concerning Alzheimer's. That's what we're talking about today. It's all about creating awareness and challenging that stigma that surrounds dementia. We'll be talking more about that in just a moment with Dr. Muthoni and Karimi in just a moment.